My name is Bobby Ladd, and I'm a former Compton police detective, gang detective. And I worked the streets of Compton from 1983 to 2001. I worked patrol for the first 5 years, and then the remainder of my career, I worked the gang unit. So I worked the gang unit, then I was promoted to gang homicide investigator. So all the way up from 1988 till 2000, I was a homicide gang investigator. Compton is 10 square miles, and there was not one residential area in Compton that wasn't claimed by a gang. So we had 55 known gangs. When we first started, we were having like 40 to 50 homicides a year, which were a lot for a 10 square mile city. By about 1985, 86, raw cocaine hit the streets and things got crazy. I mean, the gangs start buying more sophisticated weapons. So now we're having shootings with AK-47s and M1 assault rifles with 30 round clips. So from about 1986 till about 1996, we were averaging 70 to 80 homicides a year and probably 1,000 shootings. I mean, every day was complete mayhem out there. My partner was Timmy Brennan. Tim was he was a hell of a gang cop. He was a hell of a police officer, but he had one thing. He was 110% all the time. I mean, he had a cigarette in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other hand, and it was go, 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 go. And he just tore up the streets of Compton, right? And I was his partner, and there was a lot of people that didn't like to ride with him because he never slowed down. I used to say, "Come on, man, take it easy, Tim. Let's kick back for a second." No, he was gun-ho the whole time. So the streets, they knew of this blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy, and they didn't know him as Blondie yet, but he actually arrested DJ Quick, and so DJ Quick knew him. So when he started to get popular, he wrote this song, and it was called Blondie, Cut No Slack, You Fuck With Me, I'll Put a Bullet in Your Back. It was kind of an underground tape. And so everywhere we're going, everyone start calling him Blondie. Blondie, everyone's going, Blondie, everywhere we went, right? It just hit the streets, man. And so finally we talked to somebody that we knew, and he goes, "Hey, DJ Quick, he wrote this song, an underground tape, and everyone's playing it." He goes, you're famous. He's making you famous, right? And sure enough, that's how he got his nickname Blondie. And it really, in the long run, it really helped us out because he did become famous in the hood because everybody asked for Blondie when they wanted to talk to somebody, tell us about a shooting or a murder. So PCP was like a drug like I've never seen before. We called it, like, just between the guys, we called it the devil drug because there's two types of PCP. When you smoke PCP, you have a docile PCP, and then you have a violent PCP. A docile PCP is like they're profusely sweating and they're rigid as heck. They're stronger than hell, right? But you can just walk up to them and they're totally out of it and they don't really know what's going on. So you can go up and handcuff them and no. But we'd be out there and we go, uh-oh, a bad batch hit the streets, right? Because we'd get radio calls all over. First time I dealt with a PCPer, he's bashing out windows, cars, he's walking down the street, he's ripping off his clothes, so he's all bloody, he's sweating, and he's stronger than hell. So now you gotta take this guy down. So we'd have like 5 or 6 cops, and we'd have somebody distract him in the front, and then we'd run up and tackle him, and just gang tackle him and take him into custody. But man, there was a couple of times that these PCPers would just throw you off. I mean, they're just strong. You have to deal with them to really understand, but they're like way stronger than they're supposed to be. And plus you can't get a grip on them because they're sweating and they're bleeding and it just was crazy, man. When I first started, we had these sergeants carried around these nets in their trunks. And so when I first started, they took you out and showed you how to use them. And you'd take out this net, and it was like a 10 by 10 net. And what happens is you'd throw it over the PCP, and then you'd pull it, and it would come together, and it'd sweep their feet out. So they tried it a couple times, but these guys were fighting, and now you got to get the net off them, right? So it was like, who came up with this idea? So needless to say, we never really used the net. We never even called for a supervisor. We just dealt with it ourselves. Our first interactions with Eazy-E were before he became famous. He was down there in Kelly Park. So Kelly Park was a huge gang hangout. And he'd be down there, and me and Tim would go down there, and he'd take off running. And we arrested him one time for selling drugs too. So it was kind of funny because he'd be over there with a big crowd. So if we arrested somebody else, we'd be walking them back to our car, and he'd be out there with a whole bunch of group, and he'd be actually rapping about us taking this guy into custody, just street rapping, you know? Just like we're walking them back to the car, and they're all in the park, they're like 20 deep, and he'd be out there just rapping away, right? And we didn't think nothing of it this time, but hey, he became famous and put Compton on the map. Right in the north side of Compton, actually it's in Looters Park, Mob Piru territory. There was an old Sears building. It was huge, and they turned it into a swap meet. So we start getting calls of these guys. They said they're selling tapes out there, so the owners or the guys that were renting out all the spaces in the swap meet were pissed off because there would be 50 to 100 people around these cars, right? We didn't know what was going on, right? So we went up there, and sure enough, it's Eazy-E and the rest of the crew. They're out there, and they had the back of their Jeep, and they're selling tapes before they became famous. So we went over there, me and Tim went over there and talked to you, what's going on? Because we only knew Eazy-E as like a drug dealer over there in Kelly Park, right? So we thought it was kind of a ruse for him trying to sell dope out of his car in the swap meet. But I mean, there was literally 50 to 100 people there all the time. So basically we had to tell them, hey man, these guys are pissed off. You can't be selling these tapes out here. And they would leave, but the next day they'd show right back up, and it just took off from there, so.
Do you ever have interactions with like Dr. Dre? Do you remember?
No, the only time, I think he was up at the swap meet a couple times, and they were actually pretty cool when we had our interactions with them. It wasn't like F the police or anything, because we were dealing with them at the swap meet. But after they became famous, they actually did a shoot over there in Palmer Blocks area on Magnolia Street. It was a video shoot for MTV, and so we had no idea. Me and Tim, they asked us to do security just to make sure nothing happened out there. And there was 1,000 people out there, and it was a big thing because N.W.A, because I didn't listen to rap back then. I didn't know who they were. So me and Tim get out there, and there's 1,000 people out there. So we're walking over by the trailer, and Eazy-E comes out, and Dre and Cube, and they're standing all out there, and they said, hey man, Blondie, come get some food off the table and everything, right? I mean, they've always were cool to us. So they were cool though. So we were there for a few hours and while they did their shoot. So that was really about the only other interactions we had with them. Suge Knight, he lived over there in Mob Piru territory, and we had a couple of run-ins with him, but he wasn't a gangster and he never was hanging out. He just grew up in the neighborhood. I think we arrested him one time because he had a warrant out for his arrest, and it happened to be over at Mob James' house. And Mob James' mama's house over there on McMillan was a couple doors down from my boss's mom's house. So Reggie knew all of them. My boss, Reggie Wright, he knew all of them. And
that's Reggie Wright Sr.
Reggie Wright Sr., right? So the McDonald house, though, was a hangout for Mob Piru, Looters Park. I mean, they were always 15 deep when you go there, and we had a ton of run-ins with them. Now, I never really had run-ins with Mob James, but Timmy Rue and Buntry, whatever, we had run-ins with them, and it was always crazy when we went over this house, but they called Reggie Sr. up and they said, Suge Knight's hiding in his house, right? Because we were down there ready to walk down, and Suge Knight was supposedly in the closet inside the house. So Reggie and us Normally, we have to be fighting our way in or whatever, right? So, but Reggie Sr., who knew him, his mama grew up 2 doors down, he walks right in, walks right in the house. They don't say nothing. We follow him, and we find Suge hiding in the closet, and Reggie goes, Suge, get your big ass out of that closet, right? And we took him into custody for a warrant that he had. It was actually, it was for assault with a deadly weapon, but they pleaded down. It ended up being nothing. But that was really our only other run-ins. And after he started Death Row Records, he'd be up like at the swap meet on Thanksgiving. He'd be handing out turkeys. Or they had a concert at free concert at Luther's Park, and they had Snoop Dogg and Tupac and a couple other people. So we'd have we'd go up there and say, hey man, we don't want no trouble as soon as something gets out of hand. But it was always Reggie Sr. kind of at the forefront because he knew all them guys because he grew up in that neighborhood. But that was our interactions with Suge, basically.
Do you remember any other specific incidents of going over to Buntry's place? Because I heard it was just chaos on that street with them there.
It was, I don't remember specific, but I remember police officers used to ask for, send me code 3 backup. They called it code 9 in Compton. And everybody would have to go out there and they'd be fighting with gangsters because there'd be guns, they'd have guns. Whenever there's a group of gangsters in front of the house, they're not gonna get caught slipping. So somewhere in the car, in the bushes, they're gonna have guns or even on their person, especially when they're like 5 or 6 deep. Always, it's just an unwritten rule that they're gonna be armed because they're not gonna get caught slipping. So officers would go up there all the time and arrest people for selling drugs or possession of weapons, but it usually turned into a fight because Timmy Rue or his brother and a couple of the other guys, they would be out there, and you have a guy like Neckbone. I always said, man, I don't want to fight Neckbone. He was a big old dude back then. He's still a big old guy. I saw him on a video the other day. But these are guys I go, man, I don't want to fight with this guy, man. He's gonna think. But it was always chaos when we went to Mob James' house. Southside Crips got their name because they were on the south side of Compton, really the southeast portion of our city. And they're one of our larger gangs. I mean, they encompass really a full square mile, really. And they in excess of 100 gang members, so they were very active, and we were there a lot. So we were dealing with Southside Crips all the time. Keefe D used to live down on Burr Street, and it was adjacent to a park called South Park where they all used to hang out, right? And they'd be down there, and there would be 15, 20 deep all the time down there because it was an easy place for them to take off running when the police showed up, because basically there's one way in and one way out. But if you wanted to get away, there was a lot of ways you could take off and go down. There was a canal that ran adjacent to the park. So most of the times they would run over and hop in the canal. So some of the times we'd get like 3 or 4 officers, and they would come in from, there was an entrance on the south side, and they would come in and we'd be parked on the north side. So we had the officers come in and shoo everybody out because they take off running, right? Well, one of the guys was Keffe D, and this is when he was like, I would say 18, 17 years old, somewhere around there. He took off running, and Tim and I ended up catching him. We caught him. He ran all the way down to Burr Street because he lived on Burr Street, but we caught him on the corner and ended up tackling him and taking him into custody, and he had just a few rocks on him, and so we ended up arresting him for the rocks. And so that was basically our first run-in with him, but he was like chill. He was super cool. He never fought with us. He knew he got caught, and that's the type of attitude he always has. He never was confrontational or anything with us. The only other story that really pops out, because we would see him periodically, and periodically he was gone because he was in jail, of course. But the next time we started seeing him was after he became big time. So we'd see him down on California Street with his girlfriend, or he'd be on Burris with his nephew or his friends, all his friends, right? But he'd be kind of like pimped out, like gangster style with the brim hats on. He was like big time now. And I remember seeing him at a basketball game in Dominguez High School. He was with about 20 Southside Crips, and we had a little run-in with Reggie Sr. Went to the basketball game. He took us over there, and he flat out was yelling at the Southside Crips in front of everybody because there was a little incident that happened. But that's really, I would see him periodically, but he really got too big time for us to deal with. So
just making too much money.
Yep, and he was kind of in the background, you know. The only time we'd see him if we caught him driving in a car, standing out front of his house, but he had nothing, you know. He was big time. He didn't have no dope or guns on him. He was over the gangster years. Now he's a big time dope dealer. But he basically was a shot caller. He was calling the shots for Southside, the Burris crew anyway.
Yeah. Did you ever hear about any disagreements between him and, you know, Darnell Brim was the shot caller for the Glencoe crew of Southside, and they apparently didn't like each other.
Right. Well, basically what happened was that started the internal feud because they always used to get along. But I think it was Rodney Fink, and Lee Banner, and Damon Long. These were like, they were all dope dealers or whatever, but it was Bubble Up, T. Brown, and another guy ripped them guys off for some drugs. And then we had several shootings back and forth where Big Dre, he got shot 7 times by a drive-by. He was in the house with Michael Dro.
Dre did?
He got shot like 7 times. We thought he was gonna die, but they lit the house up with an AK-47. So that was Damon Long, Rodney Fink, and Darnell Brim, and they went to be the Glencoe crew. So that it started an internal feud, and we had a bunch of shootings going back and forth. And that's where another incident, Damon Long was supposed to be the shooter when Big Dre got shot. And that's when Michael Dro caught Damon Long on Glencoe, and Michael Dro was with Orlando Anderson, and they shot Damon Long. Well, Michael Dro did, but Orlando was with him. He shot and killed Damon Long.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had stuff going back and forth right in their own neighborhood. So when they started doing it internal, it gets real bad.
Right. Well, and everybody knows where everybody's at. And
everyone knows where everybody lives. It's hard to hide. They know the cars they drive, and it's rough. So on that Michael Dro and Orlando Anderson murder, though, we had an eyewitness who we took to the station and we put him on tape, and he positively identified Michael Dro as the shooter. But it came time for trial. He went to a different state. He got the hell out of Dodge, so Michael Dro ended up beating that case.
Wow. Yeah, in Keefe's book, he won't even name Dro, he just calls him the Reaper.
Yeah.
Because he was that.
He was, Michael Dro was a shooter since he started in the gang, you know what I mean? So his name came up a lot in a lot of stuff, as Orlando Anderson too. So.
Yeah.
T. Brown, he was always around. I remember seeing him all the time, but he was like with Keffe D and DeAndre or whatever, but we'd always see Orlando and DeAndre and some of the younger guys driving around, doing what they do. But I would not see T. Brown that often as far as him doing anything bad. He was always in the background with Keffe D. Of course, we had informants who told us, yeah, he's dealing drugs and he's ripping off dope dealers, but you know, and there's nothing we could do. We didn't have no case on him or anything like that, but I remember, he's just one of them guys you saw all the time, you know. Tim and I were riding around in our gang car. We weren't in gangs, but less than a year, and it was time for dinner. We were just cruising around, and Tim liked to go to the same restaurant all the time. So we went to this McDonald's down on Long Beach Boulevard, which was south of Alondra, which is right in Southside Crip territory, right? So even the drive-through, it goes in this alley where a lot of people used to get robbed there and stuff, but Tim liked to go in there, so we went through the drive-through, and we pulled out of the drive-through, and we're almost to Long Beach Boulevard, and one of the local hookers comes up to Tim's window, because we know them, they give us information or whatever, we knew them. And she was talking to us, and then all of a sudden, man, bam, 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 bam. All these shots, we can hear them hitting our car, hitting the ground. Hooker takes off running, and so instinctively, Tim and I, we jumped out of the car, feuds flying all over the place. And we got our guns out, and the shots came from the alleyway down there. So we ran towards the shots, and we seen some kids starting to run away. Right? There was like 2 or 3 of them. And we ran towards them, and there was a Samoan church that was right next to them, and they saw these kids shooting, and they're pointing, they're running down the street, right? So by the time we got there, they were gone, but we didn't see them, and we were there like within a minute. And we knew there was an old gang house that was like 3 or 4 houses down, where it was the McLean house. There were a bunch of brothers, and they were deep Southside and did a lot of stuff. We were frequent that house like we frequent Mob James' house, you know, it was one of them houses. So we put it out on the radio, and the troops were coming in, code 3, and we cordoned off the block, and by that time we were kind of out of it, but because we were the guys shot at, so they didn't want us to go in and say something happened, and you know, hey, these guys just wanted revenge, so they just kind of kept us out of it. But they went in the house eventually, and they took 3 juveniles into custody. One was Orlando Anderson, and one was Michael Dro, and the other one was Duck. Can't remember his name, but they call him Duck. He was the actual shooter. So they brought him down to the station, and Duck, Lavelle Moore, see, it'll pop in. I'm old, it'll pop into my head. Lavelle Moore, Duck, he copped out to shooting at us, and basically what he said was, I was the shooter, Michael Dro and Orlando Anderson, they were with me, but they didn't shoot, but that was our initiation into the gang, that they said, hey, if you try to kill Blondie and Ladd, that's your initiation into the Southside Crip gang. So, nothing ever happened to Orlando Anderson or Michael Dro regarding that shooting, but I think Damon Lavelle Moore, he got like a slap on the wrist back then, man, because I'm telling you, people don't realize, they go, yeah, how come they didn't do anything for shooting at cops or whatever, but I'm telling you, the juvenile system back then was so inundated with cases that they got rid of stuff that you wouldn't even believe. Attempted murder. They just got a slap on the hand and did a little bit of juvenile time, and they're back out in the streets, right? So that was our first run-in with Orlando Anderson and Michael Dro back in the day.
Wild.
We had a murder down in Nutty Block. I can't remember the street, but the guy's name was Elbert Webb, and he was a known Palmer Block OG Crip, whatever, right? So at that time, Southside Crips and Palmer Block, they were going at it. They had some argument over drugs again, and they were shooting back and forth. Nutty Block was like a neutral area for both sides to go, because Nutty Block got along with Southside, Nutty Block got along with Palmer Block Crip. So they were having a party this particular night. Orlando Anderson and DeAndre Smith both had like Mac 10 type guns. They walked up to him. And Orlando Anderson, according to witnesses, he was gonna shoot him. They were in a heated argument. He was gonna shoot him, but his gun, it clicked, but it didn't go off. So he hit Elbert over the head with his gun, and it kind of fell apart. And this is where DeAndre Smith, who also had a gun, he popped him right in the head, and he killed him. And they jump in their Blazer and they leave. And this is in front of 20 witnesses, but of course, by the time we get there, we only got one good witness, right?
Right.
We end up arresting DeAndre Smith, Big Dre, for the murder, and they didn't want to mess with Orlando, the DA's office at that time, because he was still a prime suspect in the Tupac murder. So they said, you need to get your ducks more in a row regarding him or whatever. But
why would that keep them from wanting to?
That's the DA. The DA's
you don't know
came
what their
up
reasoning
that
was?
we thought that he should have arrested them both, right?
Is it just because he's high profile now because of the Tupac thing? Don't go at him unless you got a good, unless you got him dead to rights, I guess?
Right, because it was already high profile. You're right about that. So DeAndre Smith went to trial, and the only witness we had was a gang member, right? And he ended up beating, actually got acquitted because the guy had no credibility, and they just tore him to pieces. So the moral of this story, he ended up getting off, but it was 3 or 4 days later, Tim and I were driving down, I think it was down there by Glencoe and Burris, I'm not sure the two streets, but we saw this big guy in the shadows, man. And we go, is that DeAndre already? And he's dressed in all black, and he's a big dude. I mean, he's 6'6" or something like that. I mean, he's a big dude. And he's standing there just like I am with his arm folded like this. And so we backed up, and there was nobody else around, and he's dressed in all black. And so Tim shines the light on him, right? And it was DeAndre. And he goes, fuck you, lad. Blondie and lad. He said Blondie. He goes, fuck you, Blondie and lad. And during this time long ago, if somebody did that to you, we'd jump out and say, hey, what's up, man? You know what I'm saying? And probably end up taking him to jail, seeing, because, hey, what's going on? You want to fight with us or what, right? So he just sat there like this, and Tim said, he goes, really? And he didn't say anything, right? I goes, what are you mad? Tim goes, what are you mad about? You got away with it. And he goes, that's right. And so we just sat in the car. We kind of looked at each other and said, well, should we get out or not? But he didn't say anything else. He said the first F you, and then he didn't continue with it. You know what I mean? So it didn't progress. So we just said, and we drove off. So that was our story with him. So
wow.
I know. Yeah, it was kind of weird. We were just on the back lot of the police department, Tim and I and the other two gang officers, Gary and Richardson, and we're all talking to our boss, just standing on the back lot, right? All of a sudden, we hear multiple gunshots. It was coming from around Alondra and Acacia. We thought it was coming from the high school, because Compton High is just right adjacent. So we run our cars and we drive down there.
How many shots do you think you heard?
You could tell it was two different types of gun. It was just a barrage of shots. I mean, I'm talking 10 to 12, probably more,
Right.
It was but you could tell, we hear gunshots all the time. I could tell it was two different guns or whatever, right? So Reggie was the first one to tear off the lot, and he started heading down Willowbrook. And he got there down right where past Compton High, there's a little street. I can't remember the street now, but it doesn't matter. But anyway, he saw a car there, it's crashed into the fence. And it was Michael Dro with Orlando Anderson, right? So we end up pulling over, and Reggie's taking Michael Dro into custody, and he goes, I got this, go over to the scene, because now we're getting radio calls that this shooting's happening at Rob's Car Wash, which is at Oleander and Alondra, just south of Compton High.
And what was their reputation of that car wash? It's not there anymore.
No, it's not there. Nothing. I went by there the other day, and nothing's there.
Now.
Yeah.
They built the new high school on top of that property.
It's all that is
Mom's
gone.
Burgers is gone now.
I know.
It's crazy. It's all completely. I went down there and filmed a few weeks ago. So but Rob's Car Wash had a reputation, didn't it, for kind of being a hangout? Yeah,
people hung out there all the time. It was in a Crips territory, so it was mostly Crips. And people got their car wash, they hung out and drank and, socialized. I never really heard about them selling dope, but I wouldn't doubt it, whatever, right? But it was a place where they all congregated a lot. So we drive down there, and because Reggie says, I got this, go to the scene. So we see another car there, and one guy on the ground, and supposedly they took another gunshot victim, they took him in a car somewhere. He ended up, that was Michael Stone was on the ground, but I think his nephew, they took him to a house up in Corner Park, and they took him to MLK later where he died. But at the scene right there, everyone's pointed, the cars leaving, scenes are hectic, and we had one victim there on the ground, so we kind of handled that scene. But it ended up being that Reggie was there with Michael Dro, and he's telling him, yeah, he's kind of telling him, that these guys shot him at the car wash. We didn't really know what happened then, right? But Orlando Anderson was in the car, and the other two gang units, this guy, he's a big black guy, he walked up to Orlando Anderson and he asked him, hey, he tried to get a dying declaration from him, right? His name is Ray Richardson, but everybody on the streets, because he had a hairdo, they call him Cameo, right? That was his name, his nickname on the street. So he walked up to Orlando Anderson and he asked him straight out, hey, did you kill Tupac, whatever, right? He just looked right at him and basically said, fuck you. And he died right there, so.
It's wild. There's so many parallels between Orlando Anderson and Tupac. And
absolutely.
The dying word is even the same.
I know.
Telling a cop, fuck you. They both died
I know.
saying
Isn't that ironic? Right.
Or last words before they died.
You're right. So we end up getting the full story about what happened. And I guess Orlando was up at Mom's Burgers, which is across the street from the car wash. And I guess he was up there and he'd been drinking because his auntie died, I believe.
His great-grandmother.
Grandmother, yeah. Somebody died. He was up all night drinking, and so he was going to go over to Mom's Burger, and then that's when he saw the Corner Pocket Crips sitting in the car over there, which is Michael Stone, his nephew, Jerry Stone, and Daniel Smith. They were sitting in the car, and these guys from Corner Pockets were some major players. And they had purchased some dope from the Southside Crips to DeAndre Smith and Orlando Anderson, and they didn't pay him for it. So they had some words exchanged. Hey, it's on when we see you, because now the price just went up from, you owe me $3,500, but now you owe me $7,000 because you haven't paid us, and both sides are basically F you and each other or whatever.
Right.
So he sees him, he's at the burger place, he sees him and he goes up and he picks up his best friend, Michael Dro, drives back to the neighborhood, then they drive back to Mom's Burger. Now they want to go confront him. So they drive up in the car wash and they both start getting out of the car. Michael Stone's a big dude, he's big guy, right? And so he starts to get out of the car. Orlando pulls a 9mm out and he starts shooting at Michael. Well, he's got a gun too. So he starts shooting back, right? And Orlando gets hit in the car and he falls in the car, and Michael Dro picks up the gun and starts firing back at him, right? So they're having a gun battle go back and forth right back there. So Michael Stone gets hit, Jerry Stone gets hit, Orlando gets hit, and that's when they took off and he crashed down the street where Reggie found Orlando and Michael Dro. And so we had a triple homicide, basically. So we got time, it came time for court, right? And Michael Dro was on trial for all three murders because at that time they had gang enhancements. So if you were involved in a drive-by shooting and 5 people get killed, even though 2 people on your side gets killed, you get charged with all 5.
It's the felony murder thing
felony
too,
murder
right?
rule.
So, yeah.
That's what it's called. So he got charged with all 3 of them, and Tim actually went to court and testified, and we brought in a witness, and he testified as to what happened at the scene. And Michael got convicted of all 3 murders, man. So Michael Dro in later interviews with Tim said, man, he goes, I don't care about getting convicted on the 2 murders of Michael and Jerry Stone, but to convict me on a murder of my best friend, I can't, it's hard for me to deal with, right? He had a problem with that, and he was telling Tim, right? Because he didn't really understand the felony murder rule, right?
Right.
So.
And Dro got 3 life sentences for.
He did.
He's never getting out.
No, he's never getting out. I got a telephone call, and for the life of me, I can't remember who it was, but it was some lawyer. They're trying to get Michael Dro paroled, and he didn't really agree to what I had to say about him, right? And he goes, oh, no, I didn't. He started asking me questions about what happened and stuff like, so I told him what kind of person, that wasn't the only murder we had,
Yeah.
That we know that he committed, right? But we couldn't prove it, and the type of person that he was. So he wasn't really too happy with what I had to say. So the conversation wasn't very long, but I don't know what ever happened with that.
Right.
Okay, the story about J.R. Walter Hammonds, who was a treetop Piru. Well, this guy was kind of like one of them 1%ers that you only come across in your career like one time, right? The guy that's not going to go back to jail no matter what. And this all started when he got arrested for killing a person at a gas station over on Rosecrans in their own neighborhood. He was closing up shop, and JR went in and he shot him and killed him, and he was going to trial on that case. So as he was going back and forth to court, there's a plate on the bottom of the bus that he got loose, he unscrewed it somehow, and he escaped out the bottom of a bus, right? And so where does he come? He comes back to Compton, of course, right back to the hood. We don't know any of this, though. Me and Tim don't know any of this yet. Apparently, he goes up into, I want to say, Southgate, I believe it was, and he does a carjacking and a shooting up there, and I believe it was Southgate, I'm not sure, but they start chasing this guy, JR, and all of a sudden he stops and he jumps out with a .45 caliber handgun and just turned with a 2-hand stance, just starts busting rounds at these cops, and he takes off and he gets away. And cops weren't hit, nobody was hurt. We don't know this yet either, right? So we're in briefing one day, and they come running into the briefing. Our briefing started at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So we're sitting in briefing, ready to hit the streets, and they come running, hey, there's gunshot victims right out in front of the station. Come help, I need help. So we come running out there, and there's a guy drives up in a truck, and there's 2 people shot and killed, bleeding from the head. They're dead inside the car. And he's saying this guy was in the back of a little pickup truck with an AK-47, and he was chasing us down the street and shooting at us. And they were Crips. He was Bloods. It was just one of his, just going on a crime spree, right? So they're right in broad daylight down Compton Boulevard, a couple blocks from the police station. They're having this gun battle out in Compton Boulevard, and some lady was carrying groceries out to her car, and she gets hit and killed. So we have a dead person in the parking lot of this store, and we have 2 dead people in front. Still don't know it's JR at this time, right? That's all we know at this time. So nobody knows it's him. So that was a crazy night. A couple weeks go by, everything's calmed down, and me and Tim hit the streets. It was like 4:30, and we were driving down Magnolia over there. It's a couple blocks away from the police station, and we see this guy. He's by a red car, and there's a white girl in there, right? And when used to see white girls over there, it's a known drug area. They're usually buying drugs, right? So we just started our shift and we go, no, I don't even want to deal with this. So we kept driving. Drove around for a few minutes. Now we see the same red car that the female was in. She's not in it, and there's a male black in it, and it's JR, but we still don't know it's JR. It's JR, and we said to ourselves, hey, there are a lot of carjackings going on when these people used to come buy drugs, right? So we thought, oh, maybe he carjacked this car, right? So we pull around, and Tim's driving, and I'm in the passenger seat, and we get behind the car, and it takes off. So the chase is on. He goes for like maybe a minute or two, but he's hauling ass all over the streets and treetop area, and finally he gets out, and we're right on his ass. And he jumps out, and he starts running to the lawn. He runs on the lawn of this house, and this happened all the time in Compton. And I gotta admit, man, I was complacent, and so was Tim. Tim was sitting in his car, and I got out. I didn't have my gun out. And he runs on Tim's side of he's right on the front lawn, and he turns around, he has a 45, and he just starts emptying the clip on us. Like, and I'm on the other side of the car. I could feel the bullets going past my head, I swear to God. I hit the ground, and Tim's in the car, and he's going, oh shit, right? So he busts some rounds, so he takes off running. I jump out, bust some rounds. He hops over the fence. So we always used to have a plan of action when that happened. I would stay on the street, and the driver would go and try to cut the guy off on the next street, and we would call it in and try to contain the guy in between the houses so we could take him into custody. We never went and chased people through yards because it was too dangerous, right? And so we're calling out shots fired, so the whole department's rolling code 3 to our area. And it just so happens that when he gets to the next street, Tim's not there yet. There's one of his friends, because he lives in the neighborhood. He happened to be driving by, and he jumps in the car. And Tim's going like this. And so they pass each other, but he's ducking down. Tim doesn't see him. And he gets away for the moment, right? He takes him, and a witness sees him drop this guy off a couple blocks down the street. We get that information a little bit later, but they start cordoning off the area. And we're telling, hey man, this guy's for real, dude. He really tried to kill us, right? And so we have a helicopter, and we're out there for hours. We're getting canines. We're ready to do a search, house-to-house search, ready to get this guy because we believe he's a couple blocks away. And so by this time it's dark out, and they got news cameras out there, and this news guy was talking to one of the people at the houses, and we could hear the helicopter a few blocks away, and it's hovering over a house, and all of a sudden we hear a bunch of shots being fired. And it's JR, and the helicopter lit him up on the side of the house, and he starts shooting at the helicopter. So he starts taking off running. So now he's running back towards our original scene where the shooting took place in the first place, and he's hopping fences, but we have cops on every street, right? So every time he jumps over the fence, there's a gun battle ensues. Shots fired, both, and you can hear the bullets going, and it's getting closer, coming back to our street that we're on. And we have like 4 or 5 cops there, the news, and everyone's there. And he keeps going, he's jumping yards. By this time, we didn't know it, but he's out of bullets. So they sick the canine on him, and the canine comes up to bite him, and he hits the canine over the head and cuts the canine's head open, and it lets go. And he jumps over the fence. Now he's on the same street we originally started, right? Still got the gun in his hand, but he's down the street away, so we're all running down, 5 of us cops. And he's running across the street with the gun in his hand, and we let off a barrage of fire, like 20 shots, right? And he goes down, and I'm going, oh shit, we got him, right? We got him, right? The gun's laying in the street. And so we walk up to him, real slow. We're walking up to him, and he's shot 1 time in the leg. Right? We're going, are you serious? How lucky is that, right? either we're the worst shots in the world or he's the luckiest guy in the world. So we end up taking him into custody and ended up getting convicted on the murder and the shootings, the attempted murder, and put him away. But he's like, it was just like one of the craziest nights you're ever gonna see. I mean, I'm sure every cop's got war stories, but this is like one percenter that you hope you never meet again, you know? So.
Right. Wow. And what did he got life in prison?
Oh yeah, he'd never get out either. So.
So a lot of the stories you're telling are in your book. So you and Tim, before he passed away, you put your book out, Once Upon a Time in Compton, and that's your guys' book. So that's out everywhere. You can get it on Amazon and everything. I've got a copy of it. One of the other stories you told, which was wild, was the story about the Palmer Block Crips shooting at the courthouse.
Oh yeah,
So tell me that one. You can.
Okay. In Compton, right next to the police station is the courthouse. It's 13 stories or whatever, right? And it's right adjacent to the Palmer Block Crip area. I mean, you can actually go up to the 12th floor, 10th floor, whatever. You can actually see them doing dope deals out there in the street. I mean, the residential area is right next to the street that runs parallel with the courthouse, right? So all of a sudden, these Palmer blocks start shooting the windows out on the top floor of the courthouse. And this is when after everyone's gone home, the court's closed up except for the janitors and stuff, right? But on this particular side, which was the west side of the building, all the windows were shot out. So people were freaking out. I went up to court one time and all the windows had wood on them and it says, don't stand next to the windows, right? So can you imagine if you're a juror, you're like, oh,
Right. Where am I?
What the hell, right? So needless to say, our chief, he's got DAs calling him, he's got judges calling him, he's got City Hall calling him and said, this has been going on now for like 2 weeks. It's not just one time incident. They keep shooting the windows out of the courthouse, right? So chief comes to us and says, dude, you guys got to do something about this. I don't care what it takes, but something's got to be done. It's got to stop. So me and Tim said we can deal with it, right? So we had a good base of informants all over the city. It takes years to build up informants, but we had a lot of them. And we had a Palmer Block guy, and he told us where the guns are being stashed at, which house. These are the same guns they're using to shoot out of the windows of the courthouse, right? So I do a search warrant, and we hit the house, and sure enough, we find a car trunk load full of weapons and ammo. So we took that away, arrested a couple people. So we went, after that, we went over to two of the OGs that we know. I'm not gonna say no names, but they're OG Palmer blocks, and we set up a meeting, right? And basically, me and Tim, we were bullshitting them really, because we didn't have enough manpower. We said, hey, look, this is just a start. We took your guns, now we're gonna go after you guys. You guys ain't gonna make any money. You're not gonna be able to sell your dope because we're gonna be over here every day until you're all in jail, the basic threatening and all that. But these guys swore that they would stop because in Compton, man, selling dope and making money, that's their lifeline. So even if they knew it wasn't really gonna happen, they didn't want to chance it, so it stopped, right? So the chief was very thankful that we were able to, put that to rest. But
why were they doing it?
Just for the hell of it. We never even asked them why they were doing it. They're just gangsters, man. They shoot out the lights of the light poles. They shoot out everything. They don't want it lit up, so they shoot the lights out, right? And there was this guy, his name was Anthony Bankston. They called him Evil, and I believe he was a 92nd Bishop Blood. I'm not positive. I know he was a Bishop Blood, but anyway, he wasn't from around Compton, but all of a sudden he started coming into Compton, and he hung around like the Looters Park area, but he's hanging around with the Hispanics, the CV70s they were called, or they were a Hispanic gang in Compton, and they claimed the same territory as Looters Park, right? So he started hanging out with these Mexican guys, and all of a sudden we start having we had a couple of murders over there, right? So we have to go work them. So me and Tim go over there and we arrest a kid from over there. And he ended up telling us about this guy, Evil. He said, hey man, this dude, he's crazy. He's killing people, man. Because we told him who our enemies were, and he went over there and shot. He's telling us about these 2 murders that he committed. And so we got in touch with LAPD, who was handling that area up there, and sure enough, he was wanted for a couple of murders up there too, that they had made him on. And we had made him on the 2 murders that we had. So we were looking for him. So we told this guy, our informant, hey man, when you see him, call us up so we can come get him. And he goes, okay, man, be careful with this dude. I'm telling you, he's crazy, right? And sure enough, he calls us one night and says, hey, he's out here right now. So come over there. So we drive over there and we detain about 6 or 7 people, pat them all down, and I'm watching them. And like I said, before, usually when you have 6 or 7 gangsters, there's guns around or whatever. Right? So Tim's looking around in the bushes, and there was a car parked in the driveway, but luckily he didn't go up to the car, supposedly. He's looking around and we didn't see the guy. And so we let everybody go. And so the informant calls us back, and he goes, dude, he was right, he was there. He was in the back seat of that car, Blondie, and he had a loaded AK, and he's sitting down in his car, and he got out of the car, and he goes, man, if Blondie took 2 more steps, I was gonna come out and I was gonna kill him, right? And he goes, you don't know how lucky you guys are, right? And so the moral of this story is that he went up and back to LA, to Bishop's area, and LAPD got in the pursuit and chased him, but there was no incident involved. They took him into custody, and he got convicted on like 4 murders or whatever. So.
And did he get life or death sentence or?
I'm not positive on that. They didn't do that. They didn't do that a whole lot around here. So.
Right.
We heard Reggie Sr., who is the father of Reggie Jr., who was head of security for Death Row. So we get a call from Reggie and says, hey, Tupac just got shot. It doesn't look good. He's in the hospital, but they're saying it's Southside Crips, and get ready because it's coming back to Compton. And it wasn't, I think it was the next day or the 2 days later, I'm not sure right now, but sure enough, it started up. I think it was on a Sunday too. Reggie calls us up and goes, hey, Darnell Brim was over there in Alondra, over there by Atlantic, off of Castlegate. There's a little store. He was walking in his store, and they did a drive-by, shot him, and they accidentally hit a little 10-year-old girl who's in critical condition. So he said, get your asses down there. And we said, hey, what's going on, man? He goes, I don't care what, just drive around so they can see you, right? That was Reggie's, right? Just so they can see you. Because on a Sunday, there was no scene that was already taken up, but he just wanted us to drive around.
Do you know if that little girl survived? Because I never found
She did.
Good. I never saw any follow-up. I just knew she was critically wounded.
She did survive.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah, I am too.
Darnell Brim, I think, said that he landed on top of her and that the gunman walked up and was going to shoot him and then saw the little girl and walked and pulled off and didn't finish him off.
So, Darnell is one of the main shot callers for Southside Crips. So, as gang investigator or gang experts, this is for all the conspiracy theorists out there. This tells me that, hey, what happened in Vegas is true. The Southsides are responsible for it because the first thing that happens is Looters Park, Mob Piru come down and do a drive-by and get one of theirs, right?
Right, so they know what happened, obviously, to their guy on their watch right in front of them. And
it was the streets here before anybody else, because me and Tim came in and it was like eerie quiet. Because Compton in them days on a Sunday is bustling. There are people everywhere. We were driving around Southside, going all the way up to Looters Park and Mob Piru, and there was nobody out. Nobody at the parks. Nothing, right? So, this is just telling us that, hey, it's coming, it's for sure, right? And sure enough, for the next 10 days, we had 3 murders, 11 attempted murders, and then it was going back and forth, right, between Southside and Mob Piru, Looters Park. So, as usual, when these kind of gang wars kick off, the way we try to put a squash to them is that we do a multi-gang search warrant, and we hit all these houses to send the message that, hey, enough is enough. You guys got to stop this. And we try to take as many people as we can to jail and get many guns off the street as we can, right? So Tim and I start preparing for this multi-gang search warrant, and then Tim wrote a big affidavit, which is famous now, everyone's read it, but it was like a 40 location search warrant that had to do with as a result of the murder of Tupac and the war that came back to Compton, right? So in order to get one of these together, it takes a mass amount of people. I mean, we had the sheriffs, LAPD, DOJ, FBI. We had to get like 200 people to hit these houses simultaneously at 6 in the morning, right? And so we got in touch with Vegas, and Tim was a liaison. So as this was going on for the 10 days, we were in touch with Las Vegas PD, telling them what's going on here. And we're getting information from informants that saying, hey, Keefe D, Orlando, Big Dre, and Bubble Up were supposed to be in this white Cadillac, and they're the ones that supposedly done the shooting. So we're relaying back from more, and Tim's giving them pictures, and all this is going on. And then we invite him down for the search warrants that we were going to serve that day. And they come down with 2 detectives, which kind of shocked me and Tim, because we've been up day and night, 18 hours a day working this. So I thought they'd come with a team. But I mean, we didn't know. I mean, I don't think they worked that gang cases like we worked them, of course, right? And these guys come down here, and we do the search warrants, and we take a lot of people into custody on both sides, get an enormous amount of guns and ammunition and narcotics. And we got Orlando in custody, we got Big Dre, we got people from both sides that the Las Vegas PD want to talk to. So they end up talking with these guys, but they end up getting anything. I don't want to go into too much about the interviews and all that.
Yeah, we'll stay out of that. We want to avoid, anyway, for people watching, we want to avoid anything with the trial that's coming up with Keefe. Right. Because you're a witness.
I am. I testified at the grand jury as a gang expert, and I laid out, the gang areas, what Bloods and Crips are, right, and the players on both sides, and what could happen when you disrespect somebody. Sure. Anyway, we served this massive warrants, and we got it done in like a record amount of time, right? And Tim wrote a great affidavit. You can see it online if you want to read it, or it's in our book. And we end up squashing the fight, and so the fighting stopped at least. The only time that we got word that Biggie came into Southside Crip territory was after Biggie was shot and killed at the Peterson Museum. We start getting calls from informants saying that, hey, they were down here, they were down at South Park in Southside Crip territory, and I think they went to a basketball game too. But that was never corroborated, because I think if he would have went to a basketball game, there's a lot of people that would have saw that, But anyway, we got word that he came down here and that they were using Southside Crips for security. Basically, like, Suge Knight and Death Row had their entourage of, they call them the Goon Squad or whatever. So when they came down here, they used Southside Crips for their entourage. So that was really about the only time that we heard that. Right.
So talk about Biggie's murder. So it's wild because, Tupac's murder, it seems like it was the worst kept secret in town, that the Southside Crips were behind it.
Right.
But when it comes to Biggie's murder, it's like silence. Like,
I know.
He was kept very close to the vest. It seems like whoever people think did it, it seems like only a few people were aware of it. Do you know the way that it was set up? Did you ever hear anything, get any information on Biggie's murder?
We never really got any, I would say, information as to who done it. the information we were getting it, and we thought, like Tim and I both talked about it with Reggie Sr. We thought it was, as soon as we heard, hey, this is a payback for Tupac getting killed. You kill one of our big stars, we're gonna get one of yours. First thing that came to mind. And I still think that's true, right? But after a couple days after the Biggie was killed, LAPD was waiting for us. When me and Tim, when we came to work, detectives were waiting for us because they got word that, hey, Southside Crips were there again, right? And so they want to know who Keffe D, Orlando, and all these guys were. So we traded information, and we told them about the war that was going on between the two, and that we were going to do a search warrant. And one of our informants told us that he has an SS Impala, and that was seen at the Biggie murder, an SS Impala supposedly. Well, he had it at his girlfriend's house on California Street in Southside Crip territory, and it was underneath the cover. And we thought that was odd because these guys love their cars, and it was a nice car, and they usually don't hide them under a tarp in the backyard somewhere. And this is right after Biggie was killed, so we go, maybe. So we do another search warrant, and we hit the house, and the LAPD, Russell Poole, and another guy came out there, and they ended up storing the car. But their investigation went somewhere else, and they kind of dismissed the Southside Crip as being the suspect in Biggie murder. And to be honest with you, I don't really think that they were involved myself. I think it was Looters Park or mob, someone from that area myself, because I think it's straight payback.
Right. And the most likely culprit would have been one of those Pyro gang members.
Right. I mean, everyone says it's Poochie, but this is my personal opinion, because I knew all these players, you know, and I'm not saying Poochie was more than capable of doing it.
Yeah.
Let's get that straight, right?
Sure.
I'm not saying he did not do it, but I'm just saying there are so many people in that core group that could have done it.
Right.
Not just Poochie.
It's a bunch of potential suspects in that group. Yeah.
I mean, they all had that mentality and weren't afraid to do anything.
Let's see what Mob said, because there's 20 guys that are get down like that.
For sure. I mean, for sure. I mean, they grew up in that mentality, and they were 100% down. So, I mean, I'm sure if Suge asked them to do it or was going to pay somebody to do it, they would have done it. So that's just my personal opinion. So.
Did you ever put much stock in the Russell Poole's conspiracy about dirty cops?
I thought that was stupid, really. I mean, everyone tried to tell him, you know, it wasn't these rogue LAPD cops or whatever his conspiracy theory was, but he went off, man. And he just, I mean, to me, Greg blew that out of the water, really.
Yeah.
I mean, just by witness statements and everything. I mean, you can't even corroborate that they were even around. You know what I mean? It doesn't even make sense to me. But
yeah.
You know, conspiracy theorists, though, they love that stuff. So
sometimes I think people like it, the more entertaining explanation than the more rational explanation. And usually real life is usually a little more boring.
Yeah, I know. Just like Tupac, you know, people just don't want to believe that it could just be straight disrespect. You steal my chain, I'm going to get back at you. But people don't realize the mentality of these gangsters. Now, I was there for 20 years, man. I saw them, you know, firsthand. And if you disrespect some of these guys, they're not going to let it slide. They got to go back to their own neighborhoods. And it's just not the way it works, man.
Right.
They're true gangsters, you know?
Right.
So.
Yeah, I asked Mob James about this recently. I just said the biggest I have a lot of sticking points for why I don't agree with Russell Poole's theory, but the biggest one for me was if you had this goon squad of 20 guys that you know are down with it and aren't gonna roll over, you know what I mean? They're gonna take it to the grave with them. Why would you trust? The dirtiest cop in the world is still a cop.
Right.
And you don't know what that guy is.
That's an excellent point, because I mean, these gangsters aren't going to put their livelihoods on cops, dirty cops. It doesn't even make sense. They don't trust us, and then we don't trust them. It's just the way it is, you know what I mean? At that time, they're not gonna, even if they thought we were dirty, yeah, they might use a dirty cop to do certain things, but they're not gonna ask them to kill for them. Why, they got 20 other gangsters that are willing to do it. So,